Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Oluwaseun Bankole. I'm a lawyer with close to a decade of competence built in real estate, corporate, and dispute resolution. And I've been the company secretary for over 5 years now, and I'm happy to be here. Today we'll be talking about land use and property rights in Nigeria. In Nigeria, when you hear property, the first thing that will come to mind is, what kind of property are we talking about? We have tangible properties and intangible properties. Meaning, we have properties that you can touch and the ones that you cannot touch. But for today, our emphasis will be on land. Your house can be a property, but your house is built on a land. Meaning, the foundation of every property, which is a house, is from the land. So today we are going to be talking about land ownerships, where your rights as to what you can do with the land stems from. So in Nigeria, we know we have difficulties trying to navigate the complexity of land ownership in Nigeria, what you can use your land for and how you can acquire land in Nigeria. That will take us to land tenure system. In Nigeria, we have a dual system of land tenure system, meaning customary land tenure and statutory land tenure. In as much as we give so much credence to statutory style of ownership, it stems from customary ownership. And when you hear the word custom, it dates back to history and tradition. A family being like the tiniest fragment of society, that's where everything comes from. I believe as we are here, we must have heard something like, my dad owns a property, or this land belongs to my grandfather. There are several ways you can own a property. I would like us to buttress the customary land tenure system so it can open our mind to the usage and the purpose of this lecture. Now, in rural areas, customary land tenure prevails. You can't expect the strictness that goes on in owning lands in Lagos to how it is in places like Ekiti and Ondo. These are rural areas, placed in the east, the north, and all that. Meaning, these lands are subject to the control from chiefs, family heads, and all that, depending on the structure of leadership in that community. There are some lands that you want to buy, they will tell you, come and meet the community head. Come and talk to them before you can even have the land. Under the customary tenure system, the ownership can be bestowed by the chiefs, king, and all that. And there are some practices that are cast in iron that you cannot alter. There are some things that will tell you that our land is strictly for agriculture. If you are not farming, don't come. That way, in one way or the other, alter your usage of that land. Meaning you can't go there and start building an estate. They've already informed you. This land is for agriculture, your customary land. We have a right to decide what people will do with our land or not. How did our forefathers, how were they able to come up with so many properties, landed properties? Well, my grandfather had like 1,000 acres, 500 acres of land in social place. First settlement is one of the first way people own property, our grandfathers then. When there is a war, it may be Allen, people have to migrate. Nobody wants to die. Maybe they run to somewhere like maybe Aja, that there's nobody, just bare land. They go in there, they settle in, and before you know it, after a long number of years of usage, they will tell you that these are our land. And don't be surprised, nobody will challenge them. Why? They settled there first, they developed it, they put a structure on it, and before you know it, they start reproducing. They start passing it down to the kids, the grandsons, great-grandsons, and before you know it, ownership, they will tell you that my grandfather owned this land since 1974. There are matters in court that when we become aware of how long the matter has been in court, we're like, I was not even born then. Why are you dragging me into this? long time ago, ownership for settlement, inheritance as well. Maybe after the first settler is dying, oh yeah, my son, take 10 acres, you take 5 acres. Before you know, ownership will continue from there. Now, in 1978, the Land Use Act came into being. That's when the government started becoming interested in lands and ownership of land, which in one way or the other alter the use of land. Now, in Nigeria, if you want to buy land, most especially in Lagos, they will tell you, what title do you have on this land? Some will tell you I have a C of O, some will tell you I have consent, some will tell you I have deed of assignment. So they will mention series of title documents. This is to trace where the land is coming from, how it got to you, that you want to sell to me, so I can be sure that it is the true person that is selling to me. Why? The only style of land ownership is not by being the owner alone. I can be in possession of a particular land and not be the owner of the land. The house you're living right now, I pay rent. I live in the house, but it's not my house. That means I acquire possession by rent. There are some farmlands that people are farming on and they got it by lease. These are different ways you can come in contact with usage of land. Now, if I want to lease a land to you and I'm telling you, okay, I'm leasing this land to you for a period of 5 years. As we all know in Nigeria, lease is any form of occupation of land that extends beyond 3 years. 3 years and above. That's where lease starts from. Anything below that is rent. So, if you have a lease on the property, I can tell you that my property is for cow ranch. If I'm leasing this property to you for 5 years, it's for cow ranching. You can't do beyond that. Automatically, that controls the use of that property. And statutory ownership of land goes beyond the C of O. It also vests ownership of every land into the state government. All the lands in Lagos State belongs to the state government, holding it in trust for the people, except the ones that are enjoying federal ownership. There are some lands that you want to buy in Lagos and they will tell you that this is a federal land, it's not a state land. I don't know if you guys have heard something like that before. Yes, meaning lands now are vested in state government. Before the advent of the Land Use Act of 1978, we have what we call certificate of ownership, meaning you can own land without any form of restriction. But after that, they started giving certificate of occupancy, still C of O, but different interpretation. Meaning you can now own a land for 99 years and you can renew your right to the land. So how were they able to come about all this and get by it? Is by through land administration. They will tell you, go to the Surveyor General and go and check this land and do your due diligence to ascertain the purpose of the land. Why? Is because the land use varies. Now let's use Ekpe as an example. I think the last 2 years saw Ekpe grow from like maybe 0% to 1000%. So many patronage in Ekpe. Why? There's no much land in Lagos, and Ekpe being the only place where you have a large expanse of land, attention shifted to Ekpe. And now, out of my own research, based on the clients I broker deals for, we now got to realize that Ekpe has been designed for different purposes. Some areas are residential, some areas are commercial, some areas are earmarked to build a prison, some military base, some for agriculture, for several purposes. But right now, people are buying, and even some real estate companies are not even aware of the restrictions on what you can do with this land. That takes us down to government actions when things like this happen, which boils down to the use of land. Sometimes your right to a property stems from your purpose. Now, if you intend building an estate and you are being sold a land that has been earmarked for agricultural purposes, if government should come back tomorrow and demolish your land or demolish your property, start saying the government is being wicked. The government is not wicked. So because you don't understand the use of that particular land before purchasing, which means maybe your purpose was not clearly described to whoever you're selling or you're buying the land from. Now let's look at section 44 of the Constitution, where the government can compulsorily acquire your land. There's what we call overriding public interest in Nigeria, whereby if there's a piece of land that the government sees that, okay, this area will be very good for maybe an hospital, and say that, okay, this place is central, governments can come, in as much as nobody can come and take your land from you, but the government can always come and acquire it, but you are entitled to compensation to the tune of the value of the land, whatever development you must have, had in it. So there are so many ministries all over Nigeria. We have in each state administering lands, talking about planning, urban planning, on what a particular area of land will be used for, and all that. We've been able to talk about customary and statutory. Under statutory, you do your registration, C of O. That's where your deed of assignment comes in, transferring ownership, verifying titles to land, and knowing the purpose and the usage of that land. Now let's talk about the challenges that we face in Nigeria based on land use and your rights as a property owner. The first one is land disputes. Land disputes has been like the major backbone of litigation in Nigeria. We've had so many issues. We currently have so many issues, and we will have so many issues on land in Nigeria because of the complexity of our land ownership. When you get to court, I'm the first settler. My dad gave it to his dad, 10 acres to farm on it. They've been farming there for over 15 years. I gave it to my son. My son has farmed there for over 30 years. Now they are coming to say that they want to collect the land from us. We've been there, it's our land. It has been happening. It is happening. It will always happen. So land dispute is dominant in our litigation space in Nigeria, and it's always come up. Why? Is because the complexity is there. Series of registrations, series of payment of ground rent, pay this, pay that, and most especially wrong transfer of ownership. I was having a conversation with someone, I think some couple of days back. We did a property transaction. So at the point there was need for us to, revisit the transaction and, change the ownership. And the man was saying that, can't we use something like an affidavit? Like, affidavit for land transaction, it doesn't work that way. And now the thing is, there are a lot of people with that orientation that you can actually cure some issues over land with affidavit. It doesn't work that way. At the end of the day, it will boil down to the usage, what property is bought for, and all that. There are so many things you can use your land for. As I've highlighted earlier, it can be for commercial purposes, it can be for residential purposes, it can be for agricultural purposes. At the end of the day, your purpose of acquisition would decide your right, which you have to follow through to avoid dispute. Now, the second one is inadequate land records. We've had a lot of issues with a record at Alausa here, not exclusive to Alausa here, and other states as well. Where people will tell you that I have a C of O. Another person will be showing you that I have C of O too. Of which normally we shouldn't have more than one C of O on a property. People will tell you, okay, who made your own C of O? I got this also person stamped it for me. This is my own. This person will say, this is my own. And when you get there, it's all messed up. You later realize that this one connects to one connects, that you got this C of O, and all that. So inadequate land records gives rise to issues, making land use, to be a bit stressful in Nigeria. And sometimes you can even buy a land for agricultural purposes. And when they are giving you your C of O, they may tell you it is residential. This is Nigeria. Some things goes. Yes, at the end of the day, you run into trouble. And you find yourself where you want to find yourself. Another one is land grabbing. In a bid to curb this issue of land grabbing in Lagos State, I think the government tried to put effort in place. There's a department at Alausa that they call land grabbers, where you can always go there and report any case of land grabbing. Land grabbing is a situation where you find your property in the hands of unknown persons who are presumed to be powerful and well connected, or even some touts who wield some kind of power. And it happens when you have your land somewhere and maybe you've decided for a particular thing, and before you know it, people will start coming, exercising some rights of ownership over your own land. These are the issues, and by the time you start fighting them, the process is long. These are the issues that is affecting our property rights and land use in Nigeria. Another one is inefficient land use planning. In as much as we have our own shortcomings to deal with as humans, we have the shortcoming on the side of the planners too. The urban planners sometimes, they plan in such a way that, it will later create troubles and problems. I don't know if we all recall this issue of landmark. Then, I think, was it not early this year or last year? This year, right? When landmark was kind of, demolished, and they're telling you that coastal rail wants to pass this and all that. If there was proper planning, that place shouldn't have been leased or sold out in the first place. Since you know that one day will come and you'll be interested in coastal line, you shouldn't have allowed that man invested so much money into that place to come and say that coastal rail, and after a while, they're saying that, it won't pass there again. These are inefficient land use planning that will hamper on people's investment while putting it into real estate. It's a very good business, it's lucrative, but the risk that comes with it is crazy. And these are the challenges: inadequate land records, land disputes, land grabbing, inefficient land use planning. Then the last one that tops the last one, but it tops the list, is corruption. There's so many corruption in the real estate business. There's so many corruption when it comes to, land use and property rights. And all we can just do is caveat emptor, meaning buyers beware. As a company, as an individual, if you are able to educate yourself on the rights you have over properties and what you can use them for, this will help you couch a purpose or purposes that will align with what you have in mind at the point of acquisition. Either buying, either leasing, either renting. You can't rent a space in Sentage Plaza and want to start living here. It's not possible. The use of the property is commercial. And if you now think you want to come and live here as your house, that is you going against what the property is designed for. Automatically, it's not within your right. And where you live as a tenant as well, if you live there as a tenant, what they will tell you, your right as a tenant, you have rights to what your landlord promised you. In some of the houses in Lagos now, we pay service charge. Tell you, we'll give you security, we'll give you someone that will clean the compound, will pump your water for you. Your rights can demand all these services from your landlord as a tenant. And the right of your landlord too is that you are staying in my house for 2 years. When you are done, please take your leave. If you don't want to leave, your landlord has a right to kick you out of the apartment. If you lease a property for fish farming and the next day you are beginning to build a poultry, it's not within your rights. You can be kicked out as well. So many things that you can do with your land and you cannot do with your land. At the end of the day, you cannot give what you don't have. If you don't own a land, you cannot sell a land that you don't own. Okay, I think that will be all. I don't want to go deeply. I had to just touch each point one after the other. But the summary of it all is that your land use and your property right will stem from the purpose why you in first place acquired the land. And your purpose will determine your extent of commitment to your style of ownership. Now, if you intend to run a business for 15 years, you may not have to buy a land. You can just lease a portion of land and you do whatever you want to do with it in accordance with the agreement with your landlord. As a tenant too, the same thing. And if you want to build, you can always buy, use your land for whatever it is within the laws of that place. This just came to mind. I could recall a transaction in Edo State. That land was right opposite Uniben. And when you hear of properties opposite Uniben, opposite university areas, you know how lucrative it could be for whatever investment. But in this case, it was a bit different. Why? Was because in that area, I think as at 1954 or thereabouts, that was when the client acquired that place. The place was designed to build bungalows alone. You can't build anything aside a bungalow. Now imagine a property right opposite Uniben with the commercial value of having maybe blocks of story buildings that can accommodate students, and you get good rent, but they're telling you that, come on, you can only build a bungalow. End of the day, someone who was interested in maybe a pharmacy was one that came to buy the place, which means that you can own the land, but the use, you might have restrictions on the use of the land based on what the existing laws, the existing guidelines on that land. Once again, just to take a run through, we have land tenure system, customary land tenure, which boils down to the family, clans. They will tell you that these are family land, these are community land, you know. Then we'll go to statutory land tenure under the government. You have your CFO, you do your due diligence of your general survey plans and all that. Then land administration, we have ministries of lands, we have urban planning, who are in charge of planning of lands and what is being used for. Then you have the challenges, land dispute. That has been around, it will always be around, and it is still around. Inadequate land records, you know, going to your land records and they tell you they can't find your file anymore. I'll start all over again, and the rigorous process of even having your land registered, you know. Then land grabbing, where powerful people can always come and tell you that they're interested in your own location, and you start fighting them till one of you is tired, or you find a balance and everybody goes home being happy or unhappy. Inefficient land use planning, as I've stated earlier on, the issue of landmark, how it was, you know, demolished, and some houses as well at, I think, Festac, that were said to be close to the canal, and they had to, you know, give way, environmental sanitation whatsoever, just to, you know, make the environment free from deaths and all that. Then corruption in the system and individuals as well. These are the issues that we have with land use and the rights. And so many reforms have been put in place by the government to see how we can curtail and put an end to the stresses and all the madnesses that is currently, you know, flying around in the real estate business. So I think with this point of mine, I've been able to, you know, educate to the best of my knowledge. And I feel like you guys have been able to learn one or two things on the property rights and land use in Nigeria. Thank you very much.